real time.
Yeah.
There's no
Each girl
in real time. He ferries each of these girls.
It's a great sequence.
And they're
it's
all
awesome.
in love with him, and they're all just
all doting as they're being carried.
They didn't step in the puddle, but they're all wet. Okay, I'm sorry.
Oh boy. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Grande Bouffe.
The big feast.
With myself, Cole Smithey, and my co-host, Mike Lacy. Hi, Mike. How's it going?
It's good. I think we also have an airplane joining us in the background.
New York City, you're probably going to hear some helicopters and planes and sirens. As always, we are here to copiously consume international politics and culture through the prism of a single film and a different craft beer, or maybe not even always a craft beer, but a different beer each week. And this week, Mike has brought the beer to go with our discussion of Tess.
Yeah, I'm really stretching the definition here, but I want to get an English cider. This is the only one I can get my hand on. It's SAMUEL SMITH'S Organic Cider, produced from organically grown apples, straight out of...
It's got the old-fashioned label on there. I like the old-fashioned label. It's got little apples.
North Yorks, England? Yorks? North Yorks? I don't know. I don't know how England works.
Looks like it's bottled in Seattle.
Yeah, how did they... So it's bottled in
What's
Seattle.
the ABV?
This baby's coming in at a smooth 5.0.
That's nice. That's a good summer beer. We don't have seasons anymore in New York. We go straight from winter to summer, which has just happened in the past day.
It is. I was almost sweating today.
I was sweating up a storm.
It's so beautiful, though. Like, I have a very organic sense of organic, just like these apples. Of
power of suggestion is working on you.
The power just, of like, suggestion really is working on you.
The powers.
Just this joy leap out of me.
Oh, I know.
Just from weather. It's just funny for like a simple thing.
No, it makes you want to do stuff. Makes you want to get out and jump around and do stuff. We're gonna jump around and do stuff. We're gonna go to see a crazy movie in 4DX. Tell us about 4DX, Mike.
Psyched. Well, we're talking about potentially going to. We're gonna do it. We're gonna go to Fast 8 in 4DX, which is, if you have 4DX near you and you have about $78 to burn, I suggest going with a friend to a 4DX movie, which is basically a roller coaster ride. The seats, like every half row is like this connected, like essentially like series of cars on like a roller coaster, and they go up and down and move backward and forward, and the seats like punch you and they spray mist on you. And
they spray mist on you? What?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, you like get wet. Yeah, no, it's crazy.
What?
Yeah.
I don't want to get wet.
There's actually
wait a minute. What do you get?
You can turn that off. That's the only control you have, is to not get wet.
I don't want to get wet.
Yeah, you can turn that off.
I would like not to do that.
I really thought I saw John Wick 2 in it, which is great, by the way. I would not recommend the 4DX in that, because you just wind up... Well, it's interesting because there is someone whose job it is, or a whole team of people, to decide what to make into a dynamic action element of it. So what's happening in John Wick is mostly you, as the person in this seat being moved around, are mimicking the person getting the shit kicked out of them, or shot, or stabbed by a pencil by John Wick. So it's not the most pleasurable experience, and a lot of people die, so you're just constantly being murdered by your chair.
Okay, I've done a little research for us on 4DX cinemas in the States, and as it turns out, there are only 5. There is
theaters at all?
That's right. There's only 5 of them.
Damn.
Yeah, there's
one
in Buena Park.
Is that LA?
California?
Or is it Buena Park?
It's got to be LA area. And then, of course, Ewok Stadium, 247 West 42nd Street, and the Regal Union Square Stadium 14, which is the one that we are probably going to attend.
20 feet from my work.
Right across the street from your job. So 2 of the 5 in the country are in New York City.
Hell yeah.
Then we've got one in Gurnee, Illinois.
All right.
And then there's one in L.A. proper, because it's right down there on West Olympic Boulevard in Los Angeles.
If you are near a 4DX theater and you've got a paycheck you're trying to burn. The tickets are like twice as expensive, but
Yeah.
check it out. It's fun.
Well, we're gonna see if we can scheme passes since we're such hotshots, New York City hotshots.
We're the press, Cole.
Yeah, I know.
Well, you're the press.
I've been called worse things, Mike.
You're the press. You're the fake news, and I'm just a guy who is on a podcast with you. But I think we can slide in with that.
Yeah, we'll see. You know, it'll be part of the test.
We Tokyo drift ourselves into some free tickets.
Or we'll just bust out the cash. But either way, it looks like we do have that coming up. So we've got fun little things coming up. But we really are here to discuss, after mentioning Samuel Smith's Organic Cider, which is quite tasty and refreshing and does have a little bit of a kick. We're going to talk about Roman Polanski's Tess, his adaptation of Thomas Hardy's Tess of the D'Urbervilles.
The D'Urbervilles.
And I was mentioning to Mike before we started recording that no one ever talks about Thomas Hardy. He's like the redheaded stepchild of literature that people just they don't care. I don't know. He's not highly regarded.
I'll say, I mean, it's not that I've never heard of him, but I haven't read him, and I do have a classics undergrad degree, and he did not make the cut. You know, in this period, we read a lot of George Eliot and a lot of Jane Austen. And then also the Russians from a similar period, and Thomas Hardy gets glossed over. But
he also wrote Far from the Madding Crowd.
Okay, yeah, I don't know that one.
You don't know that one?
I don't know that one.
Far from the Madding Crowd. I love that title. Yeah, there's been two versions of it, and neither
of Tess.
No, of Far from the Madding Crowd, and neither one of those, I will say, I think exemplifies the novel or is as good an example of literary adaptation as this film is. And I also did want to point out before we go any further that because we only discussed one other Roman Polanski film, and that's the Tenet. This is the film that he did after the Tenet.
You saw who this one is dedicated to?
Yeah, to Sharon, for Sharon. Yeah,
for Sharon.
Sharon Tate.
A good 10 years after, right? This is 79 and that was 69. I mean, he made films in that interim, and I wonder if they also have dedications on them, but this one specifically called her out. And it was, I mean, one thing, there is a downfall of a young, beautiful woman and the death of a child in it. So I wonder if there was some personal connection there. Certainly. If you don't know what I'm talking about, Google the Manson family real quick. Come back,
right.
And we're on the same page.
I think everyone knows what happened to Sharon Tate. She was brutally murdered by the Manson gang,
as was Roman Polanski's unborn child inside of her.
Very terrible, traumatizing event in Polanski's life, and the trajectory of films that he made after her death are very telling. His first response was to make Macbeth, which is I imagine it's Shakespeare's bloodiest play, and that's certainly how Polanski treated it.
I think Titus Andronicus is probably his bloody. It's definitely his bloodiest play, but a lot of dead kids in Macbeth. Dead families. I love that version of Macbeth because it's the most realistic fighting in Code of Honor.
Everyone says that. Yeah,
it's so great.
Yeah, the long swords. It's guys swinging around these 70-pound swords
in suits that barely bend. Like they fall down steps and not in a funny way, and that would hurt, and
it truly is. And it's not, these are stuntmen. This is not CGI stuff. This is back in the days before CGI.
Polanski's done a number of period pieces which are remarkably true to era.
Sure.
I saw
The Piano.
I saw his or the Pianist.
Sorry, The Pianist. Yeah,
and,
sorry.
And
The
then,
Pianist.
Did you see his Oliver Twist adaptation?
I did. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, that was certainly more accurate than the musical.
Yes.
And the Billy Joel cartoon version.
Oh, I'm glad to say I haven't seen that.
Oh, it's wonderful.
Oh,
It's got a little cat.
Oh.
It's got a little cat on it.
Oh.
He's singing and dancing. He's got little friends.
Mike, you're talking weird. I just wanted to point it out.
That's how I talk about cats.
Okay.
So this is a very true to period depiction of the story, which is based on Thomas Hardy's Tess of the D'Urbervilles.
Written in 1891.
And it's taken place at where there's a lot of novels at this time, like Middlemarch. So I haven't read this book. And it made me interested in doing it, though I did look that it's about 600 pages, so I don't know if I'm ever going to get to it.
Yeah.
But it's right at that cusp of the shift from into the industrial age in pastoral England.
For sure.
And that
it's the Belle Epoque period.
We're starting to see these machines show up and replacing people, and also sort of people becoming a bit mechanized themselves and like cogs in a bigger system. And I think that's one of the underlying themes. Do you want to get into the plots? Even in the movie, which is a 3-hour movie, the plot is very huge, and it's a condensed version of the play, but the book. But should we give a little bit of an overview of what we're talking about?
Yeah. So the father is walking in the road, and this guy goes past him on a horse.
Hey, you!
And he calls him Sir. And
Sir John.
Sir John's not used to being addressed in such a official manner. And he, as the guy's riding off, he asks him, he yells at him and asks him why he's calling him Sir. And the guy identifies him as a D'Urberville.
A D'Urberville.
And
I'm sorry, I was doing his voice wrong. He was like, "Oh, hello, Sir John."
And they do it, and there's a difference between D'Urberfield and D'Urberville, but it was a family of note and wealth, and so he
right. Yeah,
so
I want to pick that up because I had to go back and read it. So it's so this guy who is the father of the main character, their last name is D'Urberfield, and there's a famous Norman pagan family back in the day that owned a lot of states. They're the D'Urbervilles.
Right.
And this random dude who's just basically my dad who's into genealogy is like, hey, I think you're related to the D'Urbervilles. And he just kind of gets a glint in his eye and he's like, you saying I'm highborn?
Yeah.
You saying where's my castle then? Mm-hmm. Wait, you saying... So from then on, the D'Urbervilles, the D'Urberfields no more.
And he does have a little silver spoon. They talk about, being born with a silver spoon in your mouth. He has the little silver spoon that matches the coat of arms. So he does have a physical identifying piece of property that is in line with them being a D'Urberville or a D'Urberfield. Doesn't really matter as the story goes along, because we soon find that there is a certain cad, who has purchased the name.
Right, and they send Tess, who we've been introduced to, but briefly. She's dancing in a sort of what is clarified on Wikipedia as a pagan sort of dance, sort of like a May Day sort of thing, and no one wants to dance with her, even though she's like the most drop dead gorgeous girl England's ever seen.
So this is where we do have to take a little time to talk about Nastassja Kinski in this film, because she was 16 years old, and it's incredible to watch this movie and to imagine that the person that you are watching is 16. Now, I think they filmed. It took a long time to make the movie. I think she turned 17 while they were filming it. But Nastassja Kinski at 16, her father Klaus Kinski, if he hadn't done anything else in the world except make this beautiful creature, he really did a good job. Because
is he the guy from the Herzog movies?
That's right.
Oh,
that's why she's a Kinski.
Well, you could be a Kinski,
and that's also, we talked a little bit about how Polanski met Kinski.
So I don't know if we want to get to it now, but it's like.
But I just wanted to, not to put too fine a point on it, but this is the most nubile, perfect example of beauty. If you were gonna have,
she's very pretty.
If you were gonna open up the Oxford Dictionary and it said feminine beauty, and there was only one representative that you could have, sure, it could be Brigitte Bardot, no question about it, but it could also be Nastassja Kinski, and I would even vote for Kinski.
She's very pretty.
She's so damn beautiful. It's shocking. It's astonishing.
She can't do an English accent for shit. Where is she from? Is she Polish? Is she where are the Kinskis from?
Well, he's German.
Okay.
So I guess she is. So I guess she's
German accent.
She's German. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like she certainly doesn't have a big problem speaking to English, but every couple syllables you'll be like, oh, you're kind of going for like a Cockney thing, but you just sound like a German girl dropped in the middle of nowhere.
But the power for performance is so strong that it doesn't detract from
I will
the
say
character.
There is an alienness to her that the voice adds, which possibly you could say that I'm sure you could say that there's an intentionality behind it. And Polanski, as we talked about in The Tenant, was comfortable with having accents be sort of meta part of the plot, where in The Tenant, it wasn't definitively recorded in English or in German or in Polish. It was everyone spoke whatever language they spoke and they dubbed it. So every version is kind of different. So I'll say maybe there's an intentionality behind having this this girl in the middle of the country who people freak the fuck out about. There's like heads whip for this girl, at least in some scenes.
So and this is her debut. This is the first thing. This is the first time that Nastassja Kinski acted, was in this film as the lead title character.
I could buy it. She's not she's very pretty.
She's very good, is what she is.
She's very pretty.
She's very good. Well, I'm glad you brought up the pretty stuff, because this is a movie that I've seen a few times. It may be my favorite literary adaptation.
Interesting.
I love the dining room scene on the wedding night. I think that dining room scene ladies and gentlemen, there is a dining room scene.
Yeah, real spoiler alert.
And boy, it is just devastating piece of drama. And I do want to mention about Polanski's cinematography, because he, like Tarantino, only shoots with one camera. And so he knows where to put the camera, and that's the shot.
You mean the coverage in a certain scene? He doesn't have two cameras running.
He never runs more than one camera, ever. And so the compositions in this movie are just, every scene just looks like a painting.
Yeah, I was about to bring that up. Every shot of painting is something you can say about this film. It's really, really visually breathtaking. So I kind of want to chug along on the plot and then let us go on tangents on things that we find interesting.
So the family sends Tess, young, beautiful Tess, off to have a meeting, have an audience with the D'Urberville, whoever is living in the mansion where the D'Urbervilles live.
Yeah, the plot in the book is that Tess kind of accidentally kills one of their horses, and it doesn't quite translate into the film, but basically in the same thing, she's sent to kind of like try to get some money from them. But
she is a very upright person, and that's not her intention. That's the intention of the parents. That's the mission that they send her on. But when she arrives, she is very straightforward. No guff, no pretension about her. The problem is.
Can I ask one thing? Is like, what do you like going there? And there's a huge class distinction happening. How would you define where she is in society and the kind of person she is? Because they're very poor.
Well,
but
she's a peasant.
She's a peasant. She also seems fairly educated for a peasant. And if not, there's at least this through line of like, she's an extremely proper person, more than she sort of should be, quote unquote, for where she's come from and from like her parents who are pretty,
she's
like,
this
low
weird
class
outlier and it's one of the things that you scratch your head over throughout the whole story. You know, how did she get this training, and how did she develop this very strong sense of ethics and morals that she has? And having seen the movie a few times over the years, something that this is the first time that I've really taken a step back from it and thought about how beauty is a mask, and who is this person really? Because so much of what happens to her in her life is because of her beauty. And I just think, and she puts on a really good act of having great morals and high ethics, but to a point of self-destruction. And so I kind of question how, what is the integrity of her person really? Because so much of it has to do with her beauty.
Well, I'll hold a counterpoint is that I think she's an extraordinarily ethical person, to the fault of the character being a bit hollow and hard to relate to, but
and self-destructive.
But because of the gaze, the male gaze put upon her, it kind of gets to a breaking point where it's so extreme how much people want possession of her, you know, not connection with her, but possession of her, that it leads her to break in a way that's like pretty understandable.
Oh yeah, I'm not saying that. Yeah. I'm not saying that anything about that. I'm just there's a lot to this character. That's the story. There's a lot of layers to this person.
Yeah, and it's the kind of writing that I can get into, and I think Polanski is good at making it a film, but then also in some of the other adaptations I've seen him do, allow it to be a film, but then also thread it with the sense of layered symbolism that normally you can only get from a novel. Often with a film, it's like, all right, so here's one level and interpretation of it. Let's pick that one and make a version of it. He can give this sort of ambiguity and nuance to what she kind of represents, and how realistic of a character she is, and what exactly is happening. Even just factually, he can give it this sort of novelist lift to it that a lot of filmmakers can. I think he's fantastic.
Yeah, he captures so much in the way that he uses close-ups and medium shots. I think of the scene where when she first comes to the mansion and she first meets John d'Urberville, played by John Collin,
for some reason I thought his name was Alec. Is it not Alec?
His name?
Yeah, the character's name.
Is it?
I think it might be Alec.
Huh. Are you going from? Huh. I don't know. I thought it was John.
I'm just trying to remember Wikipedia from last night, so I could be wrong.
Yeah.
But in any case,
I'm pretty sure that John Collin is the actor. He's got this great mustache. He's like the guy who ties the woman to the railroad tracks in the old timey movies.
He's too much. He's too perfect. It's
he's
crazy.
Such a cat. He's such a cat.
The casting is outrageous. From just an ugly old British lady that's taking you on a tour of a house and just shouting weird, bizarre British shit, and you're like, is this a woman or just a wind-up toy that they found? This is crazy and perfect, to this guy who's the most handsome, devilish
cad. He's just a pure cad, and I love the scene when they're in the carriage and Tess lets her hat fly because he's been racing the horse over this really bumpy land, and Tess is not having it. So the way that she deals with it is to lose her hat, and so he has to stop the carriage. She goes, gets her hat, and then refuses to get back in the carriage. And the way they play off of one another is great. And let's just get to the meat of the action and the plot. The inciting incident is maybe the family finding out that they're D'Urbervilles, but is a sequence of events that happens when they're on a horse alone in the woods, and he's making advances. She knocks him off the horse. He hits his head, and she bangs him up pretty good.
He plays a victim for a second.
For just a second, just long enough, and then he's on top of her, and the next thing you know, he's raping her. And this is the scene, and this is the moment that the whole story really hinges on, is this rape that occurs and the way that she handles it by leaving a couple weeks later.
She exhibits an extraordinary amount of strength in attempting to resist this man who's socially and physically more powerful than him. But then she doesn't then just say, I guess I'm your wife now. She understands, and she has a concept of sexual assault that no one else does. Everyone else sees her as being,
well, you really see what a gray area the whole thing is, because
in that time, in the way that they view things,
and also the way they are to each other, because she's holding him, she's kissing him, but then it turns.
Right. Yeah, it's interesting because it's not depicted, and I think this is Polanski more than Hardy at this point, is talking about, that gray area of where, like, you can agree to kiss somebody and you can agree to, like, lay on the ground with them, and you can also disagree to have sex with them, and that's rape. And Polanski, Polanski is able to highlight the difference on film. It's like he might know something about this.
Yeah.
So it's weird.
Yeah, it is, but it adds to the drama, and it adds to the epic quality of the story, because it is an epic romantic drama, and the life choices that
romance comes later, by the way, folks.
That's Peter Firth. Peter Firth does that. Let's talk about Peter Firth.
Well, let me try one comparison, like one sort of thing about this ill-fated coupling. So the other one is in a different context. You have two fake D'Urbervilles. You have one who, they have status because they basically have money and they buy their lineage. And you have another that has no money but claims their status because of their supposed lineage. And there's a lot to be said there about the changing times and, like, the social rise and fall of these different people. That's kind of, I feel like, what in a meta way is being talked about with her and John or Alec D'Urberville, whatever his name is. And then we have Angel Clare.
Angel Clare, played by Mr. Peter Firth, and his very fuzzy hair.
She's at this.
He plays the flute very well. Okay.
She has, and we glossed over a huge part, but she's actually was impregnated by that rape. She gave birth to it, and the baby died, and she buried it, and now she's working.
And that was when she was back home with her family.
Yeah.
And now she has gone. Is she still with her family when she's working at the dairy farm?
It's not like they're not there. You kind of get a sense that she's, like, following work. It's
you really get a sense of the Industrial Revolution coming, and how the ground is shifting under everyone's feet for the jobs that people.
I mean, it's familiar. We all know it. It's the whole, like, what do coal miners do?
Yep.
So, like, they're substitute teaching, or they're, like, shoveling snow. And so it's like they lose their security in society, and so they're sending their daughter out, like, hither and thither to send some money back. And so there's a guy there, and what we learn later is that he's a middle class young man from a family of like clergymen, and he's kind of slumming it for fun. Is
he Protestant? Is he the son of a Protestant minister?
This is what 1830s. So yeah, it's post Cromwell. I don't know, man. Like, yeah, he's got to be like, yeah, they don't seem Catholic, right? They seem like prods.
Yeah.
And he's kind of doing, if you've read Middlemarch, he's like a real, like, Ladislaw, just like a guy who's, like, doesn't really need to be hanging out with peasants, but sort of wants to. And he also wants to go to the colonies and hang out in Brazil. And you get the vibe that he's chilling.
Kind of a hippie, really.
Yeah, he's chilling with these earthy people to really like express himself and figure out who he is, like, on the inside. And there's a scene that takes place when the road is flooded.
Oh, that's
and there's a giant puddle.
That's a great scene.
While it was happening, I called my girlfriend back into the room and I said, "The sexiest thing I've ever seen on film."
It's pretty cool. It's pretty cool because you've got this whole line of girls. There's probably 6 of them, and Tess is last.
Yeah,
and they're in their
Sunday best,
and they can't get across it. It's a pretty substantial puddle. Goes on for a good 60 feet, and it's probably a foot deep. And of course, Mr. Angel has been fishing, and so all he has to do is carry them on their backs one by one.
So in real time, there's no time.
Each girl
in real time. He ferries each of these girls.
It's
across
a great sequence,
and they're
it's
all
awesome.
in love with him, and they're all just
all doting as they're being carried. They
didn't step in the puddle, but they're all wet.
Okay,
I'm sorry.
Oh boy,
sorry.
But
and he finally gets to Tess, and it's just the most like triumphantly beautiful thing, and it's such a great highlight of like pastoral romance, where so far nothing truly epic and crazy has happened that would deserve like a big Hollywood movie, you know, like they're not in London, they're not like cavorting around. Like this is small, but this felt like the biggest deal in the world that like the hottest guy is carrying her.
And it's also, you get this great insight into this little different spectrum of female mentality and reality at that time. And you know, as you pointed out, all the performances are golden. So you're just getting this authenticity of these girls at this time, and what it was like.
The best thing I could say is like this movie felt it could not have less to do with 1979. You know what I mean?
Right, for sure.
Like it's like 79. Like this is like, you know, post disco, we're going full coke in like Studio 54. No, this is tiny like rural town England, and these people seem like they're absolutely lifted from it.
And you know, there's a reason that the movie's 3 hours long. You know, the time that they spend when they're having the conversations while they're milking the cows, and the milking of the cows. I mean, all this stuff really gives you, I think, the fragrances and emotions that Thomas Hardy was implying in his work. And so, you know, it makes me want to read some Thomas Hardy, for crying out loud.
Yeah, and it's highlighting all these transition things. You know, we're seeing exactly how they're making milk. Well, there's also these new machines coming in, and I don't think it's a coincidence that we're seeing the fake D'Urberville showing up at the same time as these machines are being brought in. And so it's like the Industrial Revolution is sweeping in with like a loss of the pastoral.
Yeah, it's raping the land. It's
culture.
raping the culture. It's rape. There's a literal rape of the girls. It's all of that is encompassed in this.
But
picture.
What's fascinating is you'd think that, you know, we're getting to like the end of the arc is basically she finds this nice guy, but no, this is like the, you know, I think we're like the end of first act basically at this point when she runs into Claire, because he demonstrates this like critical flaw in like just like an issue of like values.
You're talking about
against
Angel?
This is Angel Claire, because he falls for her, they get married, and this conversation happens that you're alluding to, which is very fascinating and is really highlighting the I think the essential conflict, and Polanski draws it out in an interesting way, being this double standard. The conversation at the dinner table. And then at the first night of their wedding.
And one of the things that I love about the way the drama has built to that moment is because the thing that Tess is afraid will be a deal breaker for their marriage is if he finds out her lineage to this bourgeois family, because she's heard rumors that he doesn't like.
See, I thought that was her cover. Like, you might be right that she thought that would really be it, but I thought that she was clearly harboring something, and she throws that out because he's.
Well, it's just but the point is, it's out there. That's the thing that she chooses to tell him, and that is the thing ultimately that turns the screw in his thinking.
Right, it fits in. Yeah, let's be explicit, because this is very fascinating, and is like, I think a great character study in people manipulating what their stated values are to allow for their implicit biases that maybe don't fit their perspective. Where what is she to him? She is this vision of naturalness. You know, like he liked that she was essentially a peasant. Yeah. You know, he was looking for that, and it's similar to his fetishization of like Brazil and like simple like colony people. You know,
but he's smitten with her because she's so darn beautiful. That's the story. I mean, there's no man that this girl could be in their presence who would not fall head over heels in love with her.
Let's put it like this: what would go against your values that would make you no longer fall in love with her. And for him, it's finding out that another man has deflowered her, and even by force, she's been raped,
right?
And she's had a baby. And he says, like in that argument, that you're already married. He's your husband. So these are some like brutal, like traditionalist views that in this guy who seems like this progressive, like breath of fresh air.
It's this clash of ethics, and also, you know, what's interesting is that we get to see his background. We know how his parents are these strict religious people who he is trying to rebel against. That's his mission, is to rebel. That's what we see him do, because he could easily, he has a marriage proposal, easy money waiting for him in the church. There's a girl that the parents have already
Mercy.
Is that her name, Mercy? That she's perfect, and she makes it very clear that, you know, she and the parents too, that they expect him to wed her, and he rebels with Tess. But what's interesting is that Tess doesn't know any of this, so he knows everything about Tess, or a lot. He knows more about Tess than she knows about him. Is what I'm getting at.
And he doesn't know some of the things that she's most concerned about. But yeah, he is this like opaque background. It's hard to judge where he's coming from.
I think if for example, if there was a scene where he had taken Tess to meet his parents, boy, that would be something. That would be interesting.
That's like notably like missing is what that.
Yeah.
I mean, I think he's into her. Like I was saying, I think he's fetishizing. And I'm picking some of this up from interpretations of the text, but I think there's a lot to it. Is naturalness. He's fetishizing like what is not imbued with like the status that he doesn't exactly. It doesn't like. They're well off,
but you realize that what you're saying is that he's looking for something to exploit, just like the other guy. You know,
exactly. I think so too. Yeah,
you're talking about. You know, I want some untrodden snow, sir. Could you please show me a giant field of blank snow so that I may tramp upon it?
Well, it's show me a land where no one else has set up a church, or like let me teach them to farm.
Exactly.
You know, it's and what is it like? That's, I mean, he's a liberal in that time, you know, which is not to say he doesn't have these very traditionalist views, but he has this interest in helping the blighted like masses, versus a sort of like, I don't know, like fancy pants Republican dude that just wants to like you know, have his way with girls. He's like a frat boy essentially, like going to Harvard. But both these dudes, and you know, in Claire, Angel Claire maybe went to Bard and is studying like gender studies or something. But they're both douchebags is the point.
But I want to get to the horror, because there is a great moment of horror. Just great Polanski doing it in such an elegant way. And so we're presuming that you've all read this novel, or you know about this movie,
and so Wikipedia page
or something. So if we say that a character dies near the end, you're not shocked. But what is shocking is how the maid finds the blood dripping from the white ceiling. Oh, it's so great. I love it. I just love it. And that's all you need to know. That's all you need to know. We get to really see the maid get on the chair, get on the table, put her finger up and smell the blood or lick the blood. I don't know what she does, but yeah, the blood coming through the ceiling is just classic. Yeah, it's so perfect. It's really, so poetic.
It's really like such a tragedy, very you know, very Shakespearean in a way that I don't know if he had. I'm trying to think. I don't see. Maybe you'd say Juliet, but like a female character who comes to such a tragic fall at like the hands of other men, who's like really entirely like not at fault and driven to this. And these guys are such just foils to each other, well, and they're both fucking douchebags.
It's also society. It's society. Yeah. You know, she doesn't. What options does she have? They are few and far between. Anyway, I did want to point out that Tess is streaming on Filmstruck, my favorite streaming service. So if you want to check it out, there's also a bunch of little mini documentaries that they have Filmstruck has put up that you can find out lots more than we've even begun to scratch the surface of for Roman Polanski's Tess, which followed The Tenet.
Yeah, and Thomas Hardy's Test of the D'Urbervilles is at a local library near you, and I bet you could get a PDF of it for free. And check it out. It seems very long, but might be worth it. Let us know. If you've read it and there's significant differences, please tweet at us, hit us up on our Facebook. I'd love to know where Polanski got it most right or most wrong. That'd be fascinating to me.
And don't forget to visit my website, colesmithy.com, and help support me by pledging your support on Patreon. Thanks, and remember to turn your cell phones off when you're walking, driving, riding a bicycle, or watching a movie.